It's a whirlwind of a conference, and I think people may by Saturday have a little fatigue from the conference, so thank you so much for joining us. As you probably know, and this figure might be old because it keeps increasing daily, 129 people are dying of accidental overdose in the United States every day, and again, those numbers are rising. In San Diego County, where we are based, a person dies of accidental opioid overdose every 3 days. So we know that mothers, parents are oftentimes the first responder. So we started the program, Ask Mom How to Save a Life in San Diego County. I'm Gretchen Burns-Bergman, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of A New Path, which stands for Parents for Addiction Treatment and Healing. We advocate for therapeutic rather than punitive drug policies. And I'm the lead organizer of our international now, Moms United to End the War on Drugs campaign. And we work to end the mass arrest and incarceration, the accidental overdose deaths, and the drug war violence caused by the failed war on drugs. Punitive prohibitionist policies do not work. And so we're a parent-driven advocacy organization and campaign. Since May of 2014, we have been conducting parent-to-parent and peer-to-peer overdose training, overdose prevention training, and distribution of naloxone. We're the only one in San Diego County, although our sheriffs are now carrying naloxone as well in this county. How many in the room, I'm sorry, it's an old PowerPoint, just amuse yourselves. Look at me. So we're the only one in the county that's been doing this, but how many of you are from other states other than California? Okay, oh, most of you. All right, so this is new information for you, good. We're able to pass laws in California that allow organizations like ours to train and distribute naloxone under a standing order from a physician. And so we have that, and that's how we're doing these trainings and able to distribute it. We have also passed a law in California that allows pharmacists to train and prescribe naloxone. So, you know, it's interesting, the Moms United campaign, we can hear from other states what's happening. We're able to share successes, problems, et cetera, with one another so that states that don't have naloxone programs can learn from some of our missteps, steps forwards, et cetera. So, how many of you have actually used naloxone to save a life? Wonderful. And I'm sure the press would like to talk to you more about that. I won't ask the next question. So you know that naloxone is a safe, non-narcotic drug that can very quickly reverse an accidental overdose. We're oftentimes singing to the choir here. And we know that every moment counts when saving a precious life. So that's why we started this campaign. I'd like to jump, now that you finally found that, to the video that we made. It's a very homemade video of mothers' faces speaking out, mothers' voices speaking out why we should have naloxone in our own homes. So. Well, so we're going to let April keep working on that so that we can get that up, and she can just interrupt me at any moment. So mothers are demanding greater access to naloxone, and we feel that mothers, because we have that sort of that mom moral authority, have some power to change things, because we have no ulterior motives about this other than saving the lives of our children and preserving the futures of other people's children. So a half-hour training is all it really takes to train in naloxone. It's really less than that, but we encourage the conversation. further, and so usually our parent-to-parent trainings take an hour, and then when we distribute at the needle exchange, they take 10 minutes, something like that. Did you get it? Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit more about Moms United. We have several Moms United members here. The campaign now has 32 states represented: Canada, the Philippines, Mexico, UK, Kenya. That was it. So this problem obviously is a global problem, and the global war on drugs must go away. So I'm going to just go ahead and introduce our speakers. We have a wonderful panel here. One of them will be coming in the room in just a minute. We have Caroline Stewart, who is a mother of an at-risk young man. She's also a clinician, and she's the PATH Board of Directors president. April Ella, who I'm making do all this work, is the director of our San Diego County naloxone distribution campaign. We also have a photographer here that started our work in San Diego, Jeannie, right there. Denise Cullen is a mother who lost her son, tragically, accidentally, to overdose. She also is the leader of GRASP and the founder of Broken No More. And she's on the Moms United Steering Committee. Elon Burns is a drug and alcohol counselor. He's a survivor of accidental overdose, and he just so happens to be my son. And Peter Davidson is the expert. He's the guru on naloxone. He's with UCSD, and he's in another session right now, but he'll speak over there, and then he'll come and speak for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Caroline.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Thank you so much for coming. What a awesome 3 days this has been thus far. Every session I go to, I at some point come close to tears. At some point I feel such a sense of affinity with progressive, humane, compassionate people. So I want to thank you all for being here. This is an amazing opportunity. This is my first time attending this event. So I come here today wearing many, many hats. My son is 35 years old. He lives homeless in a canyon, not very far from our home. Last night at about midnight, he called his father and asked him if he could meet him at the Vons. That's what happens. It's a long story about how this all happened. He'd lived with us most of his life, except when he's been in treatment. He's been in treatment 10, 13 times. We love him dearly. We believe in the thought, keep him alive for the cure. It's a very important point. So here I am as a mother of a son who actually currently is on methadone. He smokes marijuana, which makes him ineligible to be in residential treatment. Think about that, everybody. He's actually doing remarkably well. It's a very sad story. I want to share this little story. The other evening, I saw on the evening news that a gentleman, a homeless man, had been hit and killed by a car running across I-8. And my son lives in that area. And for 3 days, and I learned that the police had been picking up people on Bachman Road, which is my son's access to his encampment area. So he told his father, and his father had told me that he changed his, he was going to have to change his access route to his camp. It turned out the access route happened to be the identical place where the young man was killed by a car. So for 3 days, I lived trying to, my other hat is as a psychotherapist and clinical instructor, I tried to compartmentalize and work at caring for my precious patients, thinking maybe my son was dead. Now, why is this pertinent here? Because my son could die of overdose anytime, and I have to compartmentalize that. When he doesn't show up, ironically pisses me off when he comes and asks for stuff. It annoys me, come on again. But at the same time, then if he doesn't come, I start to worry that he's dead. So I live in a torturous world, a painful, painful place as a mother. And my husband is awesome, and he adores our son, and we love everything about him, and we pray for his survival. Naloxone is the key for so many people, and so I would want them to have naloxone. I want to read something to you I wrote a few years ago. I hope you don't think this is, that I'm just trying to show off. I'm not, but as a clinician, I've had some very precious patients, and 2 of my patients have died of overdose. And I love these people, and I wanted to read a poem that I wrote. This was a young man who basically was about ready to graduate from UCSD. I work at UCSD in the Department of Psychiatry. And this was a poem I was compelled to write about him. It's called In Memory of the Shadow Dancer, My Beloved Patient Who Died from Overdose. Welcome, blonde, smiling man, so well put together. I've not seen a button-down Madras shirt like that in years. You look like a young Republican, but I know better. You are a quiet revolutionary, keen to right the wrongs of years of mental anguish. You've paid your dues in the swamps of binge drinking and cocaine reveries. You've toiled in the cruel fields of lost weekends and panic attacks. You had us both fooled into mind-numbing obedience to your fictive sobriety. I hate you for that. How could you ensnare me in your mythic dream of convention? I pictured you driving a Volvo through the suburbs of Boston and showing off your intellectual wife. You and she would talk about Albert Camus. I feel like throwing up when I think of our folie à deux. We drank the Kool-Aid on cold winter days and should have known better. Addiction lies like an adder coiling in our hearts, but I am no venomologist and no Sisyphus. I am as simple as a listening stick, and I could not save you. You and I now lie at mountain's floor as heavy stones, worn smooth from relapse. No more treks into dangerously thin air. No more surfing the avalanche. You are now with the gods, and I with my dreams of you, my dear shadow dancer. I feel like crying thinking of this beautiful young man who died of overdose. How might he have lived had there been naloxone? Please, I pray that we all work harder at this effort. I was attending the session before in the same room, and my premise is that naloxone needs to become like a fire extinguisher. None of us are walking around, thank God, carrying a fire extinguisher with us. The fire extinguisher is there for the protection of all of us. There was an earlier talk at one of the conferences here about the fact that harm reduction is everywhere. We don't drive our cars 180 miles an hour. We have brakes. We have car seats for our children. These are forms of harm reduction. We need to make naloxone so readily available that it is commonplace, not a unique issue. And I and New Path and Moms United, we're going to keep working for this. One of the things I want to say, and then I'll be quiet, is that our son is a complex human being. There is an issue here where his wiring from the day he arrived on Earth was to be a bit provocative. He had ADHD, learning disabilities as a child. He was not a conventional person, not from day one. I sometimes tell my patients, if a tiger came into my office, I might want to jump off my balcony because the tiger's doing what it needs to do. The tiger might menace me, and I might even try to predate, but the tiger's doing what it needs to do. It's being strategic. But guess what, folks? Even if that tiger was threatening me, I wouldn't hate it. Do not hate the tiger. We don't hate tigers, and we mustn't hate drugs. They are doing what they do, but we must not have contempt for them, nor hate them. We must understand them, be there for them, and try to keep them alive for the cure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn. I want to just let you know what the format is, that each of the speakers will speak for between 5 and 10 minutes, and then we really want to engage in questions and comments, and so we want to make sure that we have that time. And then at about 12:15, April will conduct, she has naloxone here if you want to actually take the course that she'll give you a condensed version of it, and you can walk away with naloxone. So we want to make sure that we preserve time for that. So now I'm going to introduce you to April Ella to tell you about our program.
So hi, I'm April. Please excuse me if I start clearing my throat a lot. I'm just getting over being sick. As Gretchen said, I am the program director for our naloxone distribution and training program. We've been doing this since May of 2014, and since then we've saved 21 lives, which I know the number is climbing. We've started to reach out to more than these parent-to-parent classes that we used to have. We started out, we still do our monthly training classes here in Spring Valley. We have maybe about 8 to 10 people who come each session every single month. They come, they learn how to use the naloxone, and they walk away with a kit that helps them potentially save someone's life who might be in need if they might have a chance of overdosing. So these parents come, concerned friends, anybody really can come to these trainings. But it started as a more intimate session with people that were maybe worried about their kids coming into re-entry. Maybe they were in rehab or they were incarcerated, coming back into the home, and they were worried about their children overdosing while they maybe were going back into another program. So naloxone is definitely a key thing that people need to have in their medicine cabinet, especially if their child is or a previous drug user. So since then, those 21 people that we reported, maybe about 15 of them directly came from us going to the Needle Exchange in San Diego. I go to the Needle Exchange once a month. There's 2 every single week, one in downtown San Diego and one in North Park as well. There are lines and lines of people who are coming to get access to clean needles. They turn in their used needles and they get new ones so they can protect themselves from, bloodborne diseases and all those things. And they also come to get naloxone from me now, and anybody who also comes to volunteer and help out a new path. We've trained 430 people how to be first responders to an opiate overdose. So if you kind of think about being a first responder to a heart attack, you're the first person on the scene to rescue that person until the proper emergency medical services come. So in our training program, it entails learning how to see the signs and the symptoms of an opiate overdose. You'll recognize all the signs and the symptoms. We'll let you know what they are, how to contact emergency medical services. And after that, you'll learn how to use a naloxone kit. We carry 3 forms of naloxone at a new path, and I'll show you them right now really quick just so you can see. And I only have 2 forms today. So during that training out in the back at 12:15, I only have the auto injectors as well as just the vials. I have no needles for you. Didn't want to be handing out needle kits at the harm reduction conference, but we have,
get them elsewhere.
We can get them elsewhere, and so, but I do have the naloxone for you. So when you take the training with us, you learn how to use naloxone safely and how to administer it into somebody who is having an opiate overdose. These are auto injectors. These are Ebzio auto injectors. They're kind of like an EpiPen. They talk to you. We have these, and you pull them apart. They talk and they tell you everything you need to know. You pull it off, and you inject. And you're done, and it's as easy as that. And you think about it as someone, I'm actually someone who is in need of an EpiPen. I have really terrible allergies, and anytime I develop a new allergy, I'm so scared that Benadryl isn't going to cover it for that day. And I always like to think about naloxone like this. Would you take something like an EpiPen away from somebody who has anaphylactic shock, that they go into, terrible, like they have terrible allergies and they could die, why would you take something like this away? So we have this EpiPen, which is a wonderful, wonderful way of administering naloxone, but it's not really that affordable. We do carry it though, and we have it, and we will dispense it to you if you would like to have that form. We also carry nasal naloxone. I don't have this today, but they come in every kit comes with 2 1-dose vials of naloxone. There are 2 doses in each kit because there is a first dose to inject into the person, and there's the second dose, which they call the rescue dose. So just in case that paramedics don't make it to you in time, if the person overdoses again, because naloxone is not a permanent thing, it's extremely temporary, 20 to 40 minutes at most it will last to take the drug off the brain, off the receptor in the brain, for them to remember to breathe again. So it is a temporary thing, so there's 2 doses for that reason specifically. And then the last form that we have is our injectable kits, which a lot of people are scared of because it does actually involve a needle, and it has the drawback for the little vials that you would be able to use. We offer, and I train in all 3 of these forms every single training, so you know how to walk away just in case you were in a different environment that might have naloxone and you didn't bring your own and you might have to save somebody. So we train you in everything. Rescue breathing, we teach you how to rescue breathe, because when you go into an opiate overdose, it is not a cardiac arrest. People are mistaken because they think this person has stopped breathing, that their heart has stopped. It is the drug that is taken over the receptor in the brain that is not telling your body to breathe, so your body is forgetting to breathe. After you've learned to rescue breathe and you've learned to administer your naloxone, I will go over the Good Samaritan laws and everything else that you need to know in that training. They range anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on questions and everything like that when it's over. But we go through everything in depth, and I'm really happy to be a part of this program. Anybody that would like to come get naloxone from me at the end of this, please come back. We have gone through to sober living homes. We have expanded up to teaching people in clinics, staff members in clinics. I went up to the Indian Health Council up in Valley Center to try and pitch to their board to have needle exchange and naloxone distribution program for them to start up in the reservations, because a lot of people on the reservations are dying of opiate overdose and they're not being counted because they are on the reservations, and they are counted just a little bit different. So we are trying to expand this. Please pass the word along. If anyone wants a training, you can get a card from me. Call me anytime. I will come to you if you can't come to any of our trainings in Spring Valley, and we'll have questions later. Oh yeah.
Yes, we'll
open up.
Open up. This is the card that you get that says that you're allowed to carry it, under standing order from physician. And some states probably don't need this, but we do. So now I'd like to turn it over to Denise Cullen. And thank you for being here this morning, Denise.
Can you hear me? Yes. As Gretchen said, my son died of an accidental overdose. It happened in 2008 when this wasn't being talked about in our communities. People were dying of overdose in other communities, but not in California and the kind of areas where you see a lot of middle-class kids. So it was sort of shocking. My son had started experimenting at 14. He was in 9 rehabs. He got into the criminal justice system for minor non-violent crimes related to his drugs. I was a social worker and working in HIV. A lot of our patients had contracted HIV through IV drug use, so I was familiar with that. My son was not old enough to even be thinking about using drugs when I started. And when he did start using drugs, because of my clinical experience and my desire to learn what was happening, I couldn't believe that my kid, like a lot of people in here, would use drugs. I went to a lot of conferences and educated myself. But through my experience in my job and all the rehabs my son was in and then discharged from, and the conferences I went to, I knew about Narcan from earlier work in law enforcement, but it was something paramedics had, and I didn't know that much about it. Nobody talked about the risk that he was at when he was discharged from treatment or from jail. He was in jail 4 times. And so it wasn't commonplace conversation to be careful. I don't think my son, who thought he was a savvy drug user, even knew that naloxone existed. After his death, let me back up. The day that he died, we went to sign up for a 6-month court-ordered rehab that was going to address his attention deficit with some cognitive behavioral therapy. It was not going to be just 12-step, and it would be the longest time in treatment he had ever spent, and he was looking forward to it. In fact, he pled guilty to that charge, which he was not guilty of, so that he could get that treatment. So we went to sign up 2 other young men that had been discharged is not the word, released from jail were with him and me. And the man doing the orientation said, there's a 4-week wait, and when we call you, if you can't test clean, we'll give you another chance. And I wanted to punch him in the throat. I thought, why are you telling these guys that all have drug charges that it's okay to go party one more time? And I thought my son was okay because he was doing so well. I wasn't worried about him, but I thought that was just so inappropriate. So we left, and no mention from this man, who was the intake counselor at a rehab paid for by the county, about just risk of overdose. None. So I took him, we went home, and he said, I want to go to the beach, Mom. We had spent 2 days doing all these hoops that he had to jump through after being released from jail 2 days earlier. And I dropped him off at the beach to meet some friends, and never saw him again. He died that day on the grass in a middle-class neighborhood during the day. Part of those 4 hours he laid there, that's when he died. After his death, my husband and I started Broken No More because we wanted to change drug policy and the stigma. Talk about harm reduction. I was very familiar with harm reduction through my work as a social worker, and make things different so we didn't have to be burying our kids. And we took over GRASP, Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. There's some brochures up on that table if anybody's not familiar. And part of what we do now, a lot of things, we work with Gretchen with Moms United, and all of us in the community help each other out. Many of our members are in the audience. 2 of our board members are here. Amy Dunkel does naloxone distribution in Orange County and at the Civic Center, where our very high-risk people are, many homeless people, every Saturday. And since February, she has distributed 1,300 kits and had 315 reversals. And Dr. Sam Snodgrass from Little Rock, Arkansas, believe it or not, we did some trainings in his clinic, his buprenorphine clinic, taught the staff, and he's working on getting training in Arkansas. So naloxone could have saved my son's life. There are a lot of things that could have made a difference, and we can what if forever. But to lose your only child is a heart-wrenching experience, and to make it mean something means you have to do something to make it mean something. And so although it's difficult doing this work sometimes, we've met some amazing people, and we have what we call our tribe, and they're people that we are spreading the help out there, and we're not going to just wallow in the misery of our immense grief. And so I appreciate everybody who's helped me along my way in this advocacy, and in 8 years, we've come a long way. So thank you guys for being here and talk about naloxone, talk about the risk, and Dr. Davidson will tell you more about that, well, there he is, about that extremely difficult period. You can't, 2 days of abstinence, your tolerance goes down. So I'll let him do that.
Thank you, Denise. Losing far too many beautiful young lives, tragically and unnecessarily, and families have had to deal with this unspeakable pain. My 2 sons have struggled for years with heroin addiction. Both are in recovery, and so our family is very, very lucky. We're very, very blessed. But I asked Elon to speak to you. He's both a clinician and drug and alcohol counselor, but a survivor I can tell my story of watching him come back from an overdose when we didn't know that he would come back, only to go right back out in the streets and use again. But hearing it from his side, I think is very poignant. So, Elon?
Thank you. You guys hear me? Okay, there we go. I'm not used to speaking into microphones here. Like she said, I'm an addict in recovery. I had a long stint of addiction, which ended in heroin addiction. Relapsed a couple times, and now I work in the field. You know, it is interesting, harm reduction that makes so much sense on it, and unfortunately we are preaching to the choir, but the good news is the choir is growing because it needs to. 129 lives every day, that's just unacceptable. One of my relapses in particular, I mean, I shouldn't be here. I should not be on this planet. You know, I'm lucky not to be in prison for life, and I'm lucky to be alive. One of the overdose in particular, it's, you know, there was about probably 6 to 8 people in the car, and only one of them had the inkling to get me home. The rest said, just let him pass out in the car.
Oh, God. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then when I got home, you know, my girlfriend struggled with, do I call for emergency services? Does he get in trouble? Will we get arrested? Will I get arrested? Luckily, she just had the little inkling to call her mother, which is interesting enough because mother did save my life at that point, because she came in and was smart enough to not worry about who was getting arrested or not, but to call the ambulance and try to save a life. And, you know, I was dead on arrival, but luckily I'm here today because of it. We didn't have naloxone in houses at that point. Today we have Good Samaritan law, so kids are allowed to call and not get in trouble, which is so huge, because I can't tell you how many rooms I've been in where you see someone, you think, yeah, maybe they're not doing so well, should we call someone? And that logical thinking is inhibited by selfishness, by fear of what's going to happen to me, by not wanting to be a cop caller or whatever else comes up, and you know, and I just can't imagine how many lives we've lost before this day. Mostly because of what you were talking about. It's tiger's just a tiger, and people stigmatize drug use and don't realize it's an addiction, and they want to punish the abuser. They don't want naloxone out there. They think they're hopeless. You know, what are these, you know, if they're going to die, they're going to die anyway. There's no hope for them and all that stuff. And I personally can tell you with my own life that that isn't true. I have 2 brothers that you would have considered hopeless too, and they all are productive members of society and really good people. I've worked in the field now for about 11 years, and you know, I've lost some kids. And you want to think that the ones that get lost didn't have anything to contribute, or they knew it beforehand, or they were hopeless. And I tell you, there's no one that's beyond hope.
Thank you.
There really isn't. You know, if we can keep them alive long enough for the miracle to happen, it's amazing what people can do, and I've seen that over and over and over again. Let's see here, let me look at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. You know, we got people out there that this idea that naloxone's going to make it easier for people to use. It's going to validate their use or give them a carte blanche to use. And it's just not true. When, you know, when I was out there using, and when people that I work with are out there using, the idea that they're going to die does not scare them. You know, they're riding for death. You know, if you give them something that says it's going to save them, it's not going to say, oh, now I'm free to use, but if I don't have my naloxone, I'm not going to use today. They're going to use regardless. It's interesting because nobody gets that warning sign before they die. You know, we lose 129 kids a day, and it'd be interesting to see what they were able to do. You know, every day you're out there, you're reaching this high. You're trying to get this high that feels so normal to you because you've done it 1,000 other times. and it's right here, and you feel totally normal, that's where you're trying to get. I'm trying to get there every day, whatever it takes to get there. The problem with that is that death is right here. And each day they're out there, they're walking that death line, and they don't even know it. They don't really even know it because it feels so normal to them. And there's no huge warning sign that jumps up the day before you go from here to here. It feels the same way it did 1,000 other times. You think you're just in a knot and you just slip off this planet, never knowing that you're supposed to fight for life, like you see in the movies all the time. Oh, he's strong, he's going to fight for his life. I would have slipped off this planet and no one even told me to fight. I didn't know I was supposed to fight. I'm so happy the pendulum's swinging a little bit. I hope everyone in here can reach someone who's on the fence about any harm reduction strategies, and especially having naloxone. And why wouldn't it be a fire extinguisher? I have sober livings, I keep them in my sober living. Luckily, I haven't had to use it. But God, if it means the difference between saving a life or not, it's just a no-brainer. If we can get over wanting to punish addicts, or that tiger thing where they didn't do what they are, and I'm not going to punish a tiger for being a tiger, it's a disease. And these people are not hopeless. And you might have the experience to save a life that just really impresses you one day. I've had that experience. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. As a mother to hear this, it's, and I've heard him do this before and talk this way, but it always really, really moves me. So thank you, Elon. And now I'd like to bring Peter Davidson up. I think there's a chair down there by Denise, and a microphone for you, and you'll just talk for a few minutes, and I'm sure a lot of the questions will be directed to Peter as well. Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure what you want me to talk about. Just to follow up on the issue of tolerance, I'll just say briefly that if someone's dependent on opioids and then they stop for any reason at all, they lose effectively all tolerance within about 72 hours. So when someone is coming out of an attempt to quit or out of treatment or out of incarceration and uses again, then they're sort of back to as if they've never used opioids before. And so it's a particularly hazardous period in people's lives as far as overdose risk is concerned. And the best things you can do about that are to make sure that they are, if they're going to use again, they need to be in the company of other people. No one can administer naloxone to themselves. So make sure they're with someone, whether it's make sure their drug-using friends know how to use naloxone, make sure they're hanging out with family members, make sure there's someone going to be around, and that they feel if they're going to use again that they're going to be using somewhere that's safe because someone is going to find them. And make sure naloxone's around because that makes managing that a heck of a lot easier. Does anyone have any particular questions about naloxone at all?
Susan?
I met you many years ago, and you were showing me MAD atomizer.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering. Hi. Anyway, years ago you showed me an atomizer that worked extremely well,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just wondering, is that in widespread use? Is that is that going to receive FDA approval?
There's two types of nasal naloxone at the moment. One's manufactured by Amphastar, and it's the one I would have showed you. It comes in 3 parts. You pop the caps off and you screw it all together. There's a newer one which is FDA approved as of the beginning of this year, manufactured by Adapt. It's just a single plastic gadget. I wish I'd brought one with me. You just put it in the nose and pop the button on the bottom, and that's all you do. I think the retail cost to community-based organizations for that is $32 a unit. So it's not as cheap as the injectable one, but it's far easier.
I've been told by pharmacies that it can be as high as $150 for 2 of them.
Yes.
And the Evzio, which is the injectable,
can be 500 or 600 at a pharmacy.
I think the official current retail price to Evzio is $4,000.
When it first came out, it was like $450 to $750
Yeah.
for FCO.
So, but your product is $5. I've ordered them, and you attach it to the rest of the syringe. It's needleless, it's safe. I'm just wondering why that isn't widely available.
The Amphastar thing, I think the price recently went up to about $28. So if you're getting some for $5,
Your mad atomizer, right?
oh, the atomizer itself is only a couple of dollars. Yeah,
So
That's
why aren't we seeing that out there?
because the naloxone half of the kit is the expensive part. I mean, I'm in favor of all of these. There's no functional difference between them in terms of their effectiveness. It's just whatever you can get the cheapest, get it,
Put it on a keychain.
and put it on a keychain.
I'm gonna hold the questions for just a moment because we do have a video, and then then I'll rove around and April, turn the microphone up as much as possible. He says it's not going to go through here, and if it's put the microphone up to it.
It's too close.
All right, so we'll just let it run because you can't really hear it. So thought we had that one fixed, but no. So if you have a question, we'll just let it play, and you can see the pictures go. So here, I'll come over here.
I'll try to keep it short. I can get a little wordy sometimes. That's a little too loud. I have a hearing impairment, and so it's
about right about there.
Okay, Suboxone and naloxone. I am now trying to maintain myself on Suboxone maintenance, which I love. I went through detox, got on that. But I don't like always having to take the naloxone with it. I want to be able to have people believe that I want to be in recovery on Suboxone maintenance, but I don't like what it's cut with always. I love naloxone, save lives, but a lot of these pharmaceuticals have crap they're cut with that I don't like. So I don't know if that's a question or that's my complaint.
Sam, did you want to respond
Yes,
to
I
that?
can. Okay, you're taking Suboxone, which is a combination of buprenorphine and naloxone. You're thinking that naloxone is a problem?
I think that I am not going to overdose on Suboxone. Why do I have to have naloxone?
They put the naloxone in, okay, you take it under your tongue, sublingually, like
I
you're
know
supposed to.
exactly how to take
Oh,
it.
I know, ma'am, but what I'm trying to explain is you don't absorb the naloxone orally. It can't be absorbed through the mouth, it's not absorbed under the tongue. You swallow it, and it's destroyed through first-pass metabolism through your liver. So you're not getting any naloxone in your bloodstream.
Why
like
then?
that. It's there to keep people from shooting it. To put it into a syringe and shoot it. See, the theory...
They're gonna, if we are gonna shoot dope, we're gonna shoot it.
I know, and people shoot their Suboxone.
Right, I know.
So what I'm trying to get at is the naloxone is ineffective. Either if it's under the tongue or you inject it. The problem is called something called binding affinity. It's how well the buprenorphine is like a key fitting into a lock. That buprenorphine key fits into that lock very, very tightly. It takes a lot of naloxone. You have to almost supersaturate the brain with naloxone.
You're
to be able
still
to pull
trying
that
to
out.
control us, is what I'm saying, because if we're gonna shoot dope, we're gonna shoot dope. If we're gonna do Suboxone, we're gonna do Suboxone. I wanna be able to talk to you as a healthcare professional and tell the truth.
Okay, I'm still
And
not...
I don't want you to control me with naloxone.
Ma'am, you're not being controlled with naloxone. That's the point. It's not
I'm
getting
sorry,
into-
maybe I'm ineffective in my way I'm trying to communicate. I don't wanna listen anymore, thank you very much.
No, I think it's really particular questions. I really encourage conversation after this, and perhaps you could continue this conversation. There are several health care professionals here that could talk
Thank
to you
you.
more about
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, definitely want to do that. I want to
Respond to that lady.
well, actually, I'm going to go there and then back here, if that's okay, because I know Beth had her hand up a long time ago. I think she had her hand up first, so I'll come right back, okay?
Hi, everybody. My name is Beth Herman, and I work on the San Diego Needle Exchange Band. And I'm getting a lot of requests for naloxone lately, and I'm wondering if you have anything that I can give to my clients when they ask me, other than me writing you down and saying, you know, try to follow your path. So do you have any information I can give out to my clients when I see them?
As of right now, it would have to be referring it to us because we have the naloxone distribution program. They do need to take the training with us for us to be able to give it out to them.
Right,
if
but
you
do
have-
you have information that I can, here's a card and I can give
Yes.
this to you?
Definitely.
Do you have
of
it with
course.
you?
I have some with me. I don't
Okay.
have all of them, but I can give you whatever I have today, and we'll send you some stuff back. No problem.
That's great,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's also worth noting that Hospira is about to start doing a deal where if you are a 501c3 and have a medical provider, you can get $1 injectable naloxone from them starting in January.
Amazing.
So a needle exchange could become its own naloxone program as long as you get permission from your higher ups. And I know I've had a number of conversations with them about that somewhat frivolously.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Andrea. I'm from England. I'm a recovering drug addict and a drug policy reformer. And I just wanted to say that over the years of recovery, first of all, I've found out why I used, and secondly, I think that many of the responses that we took as injection drug users were actually quite rational to very, 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 very traumatic early childhoods. And you know, what is heroin? My drug was heroin, it's a painkiller, and I'm just wondering if the lady who just spoke with her lovely white hat,
Oh, thank you.
I don't know your name, so I can't, you know. Sister. Is actually doing what a lot of us did, was actually rationally finding out by default, if you like, or by accident or whatever, that injecting this thing that isn't supposed to be is actually saving her life. And it might have an added benefit of getting slightly high. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I think a lot of drug addicts have found things out by accident and at random, because, you know, personally, you know, that may sound a little bit too colluding with the addicted blah blah, you know, the stuff that we get condemned with, but that's what it sounded like to me.
Anybody? Caroline?
So I run for many years an anxiety program at UCSD, and about 2 years ago I decided to start a harm reduction drug and alcohol program. Just a group. And about 60% of my anxiety group quietly came to me and said, can we move over and be in your drug and alcohol group? There's such a intimate form of dance partnership between anxiety and all types of drug use. In fairness, I think it's a collaboration between genetic vulnerability and life experience. It's an interplay between your biological state and your life experience. I don't think it's that only people who've been had trauma struggle with addiction. I don't think I have come to believe, maybe some of you heard me say this the other day, that the world is divided into hunters and farmers. Now I'm a farmer, and I wake up every morning and I'm highly goal-directed. I'm very anxious. I'm worried about, I was up at 4 in the morning this morning thinking, how am I going to say the right thing? How am I going to be clever? I was thinking a lot. Every day it's about obligation, being a good citizen. So if I'm a farmer, I go into the fields. Let's say I weed for 10 hours and there's no reward. I just come home and I go into the field the next day. I have a highly developed prefrontal cortex since the day I arrived on Earth that is very future-oriented and who says to me, Caroline, in 4 months, if you keep weeding this field, you can take your crop to farm and buy a tractor. So it's like, yeah, I can live off the future. My son, who lives in the tent in the canyon near my home, my son's a hunter. Can he become a farmer? I don't know. He's had a lot of treatment biologically and psychotherapeutically. I think he's a hunter. What does he do when he wakes up in the morning? He says, gosh, am I hungry? Yeah, I'm gonna go and eat. And then he goes back to bed or he hangs out. There's nothing against him. He's an incredible person. He loves nature, he loves animals, he's kind. But he's a hunter. He doesn't have future orientation. He wasn't the kind of kid that was gonna do well in academia, like if he had a choice, you're gonna go to a party or you're gonna study, he was gonna go party. He did not have that sense of future reward. Both hunters and farmers have risk for addiction. The farmers have risk for addiction because of the anxiety. The hunters, because they need stimuli. There's a variety of complex neurological reasons. I would say that I think the hunters are mistreated in our society. We want to get rid of them. They're the tigers. We're afraid of them. We incarcerate them. We have contempt for them. And we farmers, we get a lot of credit for everything. I just want us to know that there is a relationship between biology and drug use.
So what is that?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask, I've got another person over here that has his hand raised. And I'm going to ask the panelists, as well as the audience, to keep your comments short, and your responses short, so that we can really engage everybody in the room that wants to talk. So, go.
Well, my name is Jeff Basinger, and I'm the Director of Regional Programs for the Western Colorado AIDS Project. We're 30 miles from Utah. And we're part of the statewide Colorado AIDS Project with 7 regional offices all across the state. We have the only legal syringe exchange program, and we have people drive in for 200 miles to access our services. And we are now rolling out Narcan and naloxone as part of our toolkit in Colorado, and have legal standing orders from the Chief Medical Officer of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I want to say thank you to the panelists. This has been very moving, and I can't respect and tell you how much moms matter, and what you can get done is just profound. And your work towards saving lives and ending the war on drugs is just amazing. And so we're also struggling for funding, which I'm sure you do too. And how do we, the recent estimate, the actual participants accessing our legal syringe exchange programs currently in Colorado with 4 years of legalization is over 8,000. While we know that the estimated number of injectors is probably more around 30 or 40,000, Colorado now ranks 4th in the nation per capita for accidental opiate deaths, overdoses. So it is important work that everybody in the room is doing, but this panel has just been profound and amazing. Thank you.
Moms and dads are important. Powerful. Okay, did you have another question?
I just wanted to ask the lady who just spoke, what's her name?
Caroline Stewart.
Caroline. How did that relate to the comment I've made about our previous sister's comment?
I did comment on that. I do not think that all addiction is trauma informed. I do not.
Sorry.
Okay, and that's a huge debate all in of itself. So maybe you guys want to talk later on that.
Mine wasn't trauma-based, sometimes it is, but it's definitely to kill some sort of pain, not emotional or whatever.
Yeah, does anybody else on the panel want to chime in on that? Okay. And I actually agree with Caroline and Elon on that one.
Oh, hi. I want to thank the panel and everyone for being here. And my name is Leslie. My son did die in an overdose in February 2015. And I would like to say that heroin did not kill my son. It was the drug war killed my son. I would like to have a world where we can keep people alive and well, period. Not to wait for a miracle, not to wait for better choices, not to wait for people to be worthy, but have them be worthy right now. That's imperative. And I don't want people to have to explain why they use drugs. If they use it for this reason or another reason, that is not always for us to say, and there's so many reasons why people could be using it. And I just don't, anyway, I want to emphasize that you were saying that you don't use alone. Good Samaritan law. The girl my son was with drove around for 3 or 4 hours with my son in the car while he died. And she didn't get him anyhow until it was too late. And I just don't want people to feel bad about being drug addicts, so they're scared and they're using alone. They're ashamed. And this woman here that got up and left, that's my sister. And she struggled with heroin addiction for literally 50 years and still alive. And I would like her to have a lot of respect and be viewed as one of the most important people at this conference. So thank you.
It's interesting. My younger son, who is now 21 months in recovery, struggled for so long that we didn't think he was going to make it. But honestly, it wasn't overdose that I was the most worried about. It was after using needles for so many years. It was the physical, his physical health that we thought was going to take him. And I almost lost hope, and yet I preach every day that people can never, ever lose hope. But he came back. His mind, his health is all returning, and it does feel like a miracle. Yes.
Thanks. I just wondered if most people here are aware of the role that the pharmaceutical industry played in the fact that we're in the worst epidemic in U.S. history. I mean, can you raise your hand if that's something you're aware of? Okay, that's really good. Okay, because, I mean, to me, this is equivalent to, you know, the polio epidemic, you know, that we had in the 50s. I mean, you know, if the pharmaceutical industry hadn't succeeded in changing the pain management guidelines, you know, pushing dangerous drugs like OxyContin, which is almost, you know, identical chemically to heroin, your children would still be alive. So again, I feel that, you know, in a way, a lot of lives have been lost because they were 20 years old at the wrong time in history. And the other point is that these same people that brought about this epidemic are still alive and well, and I really don't think they've been held accountable. And rich. And so I hope that, I know there's a group called Fed Up that is trying to, anyway, I think everyone here deserves justice, and I hope we get to see that someday.
And the war on drugs is a war waged against families, and it's killing our kids.
You know, I want to comment on that just because I see it all the time in my field. You know, opiate addiction has grown dramatically since OxyContin. And for myself, just Percodan and Vicodin, because there was an OxyContin when I started going down that road. But I really don't believe I would have taken the step from drinking, smoking pot, and that type of stuff to heroin without that middle step of the pharmaceutical opiates that were being pushed. And I see it happening all the time. Yes. I think it's the main thing that happened.
Hi, my name's Yvonne. I'm from Australia, and I missed a few of the presentations, so I apologise. I was wanting to know, I've been seeing naloxone's getting rolled out a lot, outreach services, Netherlands 3 programs, it's really inspiring. We've recently changed the rules around being able to access naloxone through chemists without scripts, which makes it a little easier to get. And I don't think we've got anything near the prices you guys want me to pay, that's scary. But I was wondering whether you have any naloxone distribution projects happening where people who are leaving jail are given naloxone kits, or people who are potentially leaving an abstinence-based rehab because they don't want to be there anymore, not because they've finished the program and they're succeeding, but because they're going to walk out the door with the intention of using, have been given naloxone kits, given these are really high-risk points for overdose.
Hi, fellow Australian. There are some programs in the United States where people are training people who are incarcerated to use naloxone and then giving them naloxone in their discharge kit as they get released, but they're fairly thin on the ground at the moment. There's one in San Francisco, and that's the only one I know of in California. There's probably 4 or 5 others around the country. It's something we're pushing very hard for because it's such an obvious good place to do this kind of work. Similarly, some treatment agencies do naloxone training. Again, it's not very common yet, but it's also something we're pushing for.
Respond to that.
Yeah, Caroline was at that session as well, so you might want to talk to Caroline afterwards. I'll be right there. I've got one here.
She wanted to respond.
Oh, response?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm from Illinois, and in Illinois, in Lake County, which is just north of Cook County, our jail is doing naloxone distribution upon exit, and that was a recommendation of our state's attorney and the treatment community. It's a little different. We definitely, I think, by and large, probably are more progressive than most areas because of a lot of the advocacy work that's done and the general perspectives and the way the community's developed, et cetera. But it does exist, and it can be done, and the way that we're doing it is through our health department. The health department is actually sending in a representative to train them, and they're funding it through the health department, through a grant that they wrote. So there are some unique ways that groups are doing this, and I think a lot of it really has to come down to how are you advocating in your community? What is the strategy? If it's comprehensive and you're utilizing what we know in our prevention frameworks as, or our community impact frameworks as attacking all systems, I think it can be done. I just know that it can't, I know that every community looks different, so I'm happy to give you the contact information if you're interested in somebody who you can talk to in our area about that, but it does exist, so.
So, thank you. Yes, I hope a few of you also attended the training in the, about New York City and New York State, what they're doing. And Rikers Island, they blew me away because they actually they staple a naloxone kit to every pack that's leaving. In other words, if someone was put into the jail and then is discharged, when they're given their pack back, every single pack has an attachment with naloxone. And the sheriffs are training, and they also bring health officials into a variety of programs. One thing that I said that I think is a problem, and it goes back to my thinking about the fire extinguisher, is that my son in the last 6 months has had 8 backpacks. He loses, the police take a lot of, they go into the encampments and they take all the belongings away from people, including their naloxone kits. And so, they might get the naloxone when they leave jail, but hanging on to it's going to be hard. One, a little bit could be disorganization, but it also is because there are authorities that are taking away the belongings of the people. So, yes, I think that California needs to be talking with New York because they're doing some amazing things to make sure that people leaving the criminal justice system have naloxone.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janie Simmons, founder of Get Naloxone.
now.org, and I just want to tell you that I'm a parent, and I want to support you, and I have on my resource links list have put as many harm reduction oriented parents groups as I know of, so make sure you're there, and I will too. We've trained 20,000 people in the last year and a half, on almost no funding, and there's a decent percentage of them who are family members, and half are getting on the site from Google searches. I'm also fielding about 3 emails a day. There's about 70 people are getting on the site to take either the professional first responder training for police, firefighters, and EMTs, or the potential bystander training a day. And I'm fielding about 3 emails a day, often from parents who are saying, I took your training, thank you so much, where can I get naloxone? So I write everybody back, and I tell them to use the Get Naloxone Finder on the site, and if that doesn't work, I tell them to call the Department of Health, and if that doesn't work, I tell them to write you back. So it's getting a little bit unwieldy. So I'm thinking of, sort of as like we get bigger, and we just published a survey that shows this is really working. The first responders, the bystander one is under review. They're really positive. We're setting up some formal, sustainable collaborations with Maryland, and we hope other states are going to also support us, and once they see what we can do in terms of tracking people and following up with people. So I think it's really important for me to be in contact with you folks and get a sense of how I can use the site to better support you and link you and other parents who are just, coming out, trying to figure out what to do.